Good morning, everyone. The title of the paper, Role of Panchayats in the Centrally Sponsored Schemes, Issues and Evidence. Thanks to H.S. Sailendra and Mr. S.S. Rajput. Following to strong link between the centralized sponsored schemes and Panchayat Raj institutions and seen as a solution which can both help CSS to shed their top down characters for better outcomes and enable PRI emerge and institutions of real self governance. These studies look at the emerging experience and challenges focusing on six major CSS. The six CSS are National Rural Employment Guarantee Schemes NREGS, Indra Awas Yojana IAY, Sarva Shakshi Abhiyan SSA, National Rural Health Mission NRHM, Integrated Child Development Services ICDS, and Trade Rural Water Supply Program ARWSO, so that eight major states presenting four broad geographical regions of India, north, south, and east and west, were selected for this study. Data were collected at four levels for each scheme: state, Jilla Panchayat, intermediate Panchayat, and village Panchayat. A relative background districts was selected in each state to examine the role being played by PRIs. At the three level, an attempt is made to capture for these each programs the underlying process and outcomes of involving of PRIs in planning, implementations, and monitoring. This study reveals that trust for actual linkages comes mainly from attaining program specific goals. Then the aim of deepening this devaluing process. As a result, neither the goal of improving grassroots deliveries of CSS nor the case of empowering panchayats in addressed fully. The study observed wide variations across schemes and states in the involvement of PRIs. At three tiers overall, the PRIs are found involved largely in some aspect of program implementation and monitoring. The study has identified systematic and programmatic hurdles that limit an effective linkage between CSS and PRIs. Systematically inadequate and slow process towards devaluations in a major constraint. The considered top bottom nature of CSS is a programmatic constraint which affective the potential role of PRIs for bottom-up planning and development. What is need for a meaningful linkages is a reconstruction of CSS to comes out their top-down model and enabling the state to deepen the decentralized process. And second one is identify the poor and assessment of the new BPL method. Poverty has been major challenges both on conceptual and policy front. A clear understanding of this nature and magnitude of poverty is considered essential for the meaningful action of poverty. The official poverty method ways of measuring poverty and identification of the poor have come under criticism for being highly top bottom and narrow in prescriptions about the methods adopted for actually identification of poor at the micro level of providing various developmental assistance. A major issue has been the error of high exclusion of the poor and inclusions of non-poor. A new methodology has been proposed for the identification of the poor in the recently brought out a report of the expert group to advise the Ministry of Rural Development on the methodology for conducting below poverty line BPL census for 11th fifth year plan August 2009. The expert group headed by NC Saxena was constituted by Ministry of Rural Development with the explicit purpose of identifying a more sustainable methodology and suitable methodology to recommended institutional systems for conducting survey and addressing grievance, and to look at these issues of the relationship between estimations of identification of poor and putting a cap on the total number of BPL households. This paper examines critically the proposed BPL methodology, focusing on its relevance from perspective of decentralized planning and suggested bold directions of addressing of the challenges of identification of the poor. Poverty ratio and the cap. The EG, the expert group, start with these right premises for that need for universal coverage for the basic entitlement look for. However, the EG goes encourage that there are several programs which may need to targeting and cap on the number of BPL household in order to arrive a reasonable cap. The EG has gone into issues poverty estimations on its own. The EG based is analyzed and available evidence and reached to conclusion that there is a large scale of underestimations of the rural poverty by official agencies. A large section of the poor who are clearly provided to not being captured by this official poverty line. The officials poverty line entirely arrived based on calories norms of the 2400 for rural areas, updated based on consumer price indexes on longer correspondent at the level of expenditures is required to meet minimum calories. There is a major deviation of this calories consumption of the poverty line level as compared to the prescribed norms. As per EG, the actual level of calories intake is not only lower for the poverty classes, bottom 50%, but has been showing a declining trend. The EG is of this value of these days decline is attributable of more of the declining purchasing power of the poor than to do providing nutrition for the declining calories needs. The EG hands agrees that the official poverty line and rural poverty ratios of 28.3% are artificially low. The EG argues that poverty line has to be corrected to arrive the relative number before the BPL census would be held. The EG has recommended that level of rural poverty be fixed at 50% tested comparison well as with other indicators like to actually nutritional status and poverty estimate made by World Bank of for India. The EG advocates that this ratio is accepted and pro rata adjustment to is made in rural poverty ratios of all the states. These states level poverty ratios are then translated into direct district and block and village panchayat level ratios. The poverty ratios so arrived could be served as cap or limit conducting the new BPL survey. The districts with poverty ratios of over 80 percentage or to be included for the purpose of census. So BPL census methodology according to EG and BPL method has to be completed or simply to less more prone for the errors. The EG has arrived for three board method: identification of poor, automatic exclusion and automatic inclusion, and grading. The rest for the exclusions visible for rich or to be identified using local knowledge and official information. Five criteria are suggested in these records via owning land double, which are tribal and dry. The district average possessing three or four wheeled motorcycles having at least one mechanized equipment having a person drawing a regular salary of over per month 10,000, employed in government or private sectors and paying income tax status if need, may add other indicators of criteria. Primitive tribals groups to most discriminated as scheduled caste groups: single woman headed householders headed by disabled person and minor, destitute and houseless households, and households with bonded laborers are the groups suggested to automatic inclusion. Panchayats has to take due care of both migrations and out migration to avoid exclusion. The rest of the poor are to be identified based on grading on a 10-point scale. The households are to be surveyed to be 5-parameter scheduled covering to caste, religious status, nature of occupations, and education level of adults. Prevalence of the calories disease, TB, HIV, and AIDS, disabilities, and age of the head of householders. The survey is to be conducted by a marked government officials from the block or mandal different from one in which the village's panchayat is located. A team for three residents conducting for at least one SC or ST from one woman nominated by the panchayatas will accompany the government officials the list with grading into the authenticated by Grama Sabha in a transparent way. For identification on cut-off source is suggested and to household or to be mergely graded in ascending order of score. In case of similar score, the SC/ST groups may be placed above in the list preferable by the Grama Sabha. Though the household will be initiative for survey as all single woman, old individual above 60 years, adult with chronic disease, and bonded laborers with spouse and children or to be treated as a separate household. The list will be revised every 2 years for various changes and the survey results will be valid for 10 years. Any household can seek correction of by applying to Grama Sabha. The application has to be disposed of within the month period of the scope for appeal to CEO of the district panchayat. Assessment. The EG views that all basic entitlements like food, health, education, and work should be provided to an universal basis, and BPL method should not virtually universal access to these services. The EG has clearly identified a strong case for enlarging this category of poor as the official's poverty number have resulted to widespread and exclusion for the poor from accessing basic entitlement, which to the stand of AG on underestimations is not vague. The method adopted by the arrived at poverty ratios of fixing a cap for BPL survey is highly questionable. Apparently, as this EG has gone to beyond a terms reference where, moreover, dispute appreciating to the need for the universalization, the EG files to recommend universal provisions even for food. Several complaints have been influenced these EG forcing is to adopt a middle path between universalizations and targeting. Moreover, the poverty cutoff arrived by the EG is observed by the top down. The method adopted is based on particular than morative considerations. The poverty line has been arrived based on the natural. The rural poverty ratio is 50%. The EG was comfortable with the exposed narratives basis of 2100 calories and 12.25 kgs as calories comes up to more than realization which goes against the norms that the national poverty line and the ratio be arrived based on weighted aggregation from state level. The most glaring limitation is this fixing a cap for a BPL census. The state-wise cap imposed for the BPL census by the Planning Commission based on official poverty estimation has been severely criticized. The EG has gone one step further and has even fixed district, block or panchayat level caps for poverty estimations. The BPL numbers to be arrived based on this new method have to be occurred to the cap recommended. The EG believes that the state and PRIs which are the responsible. The EG believes that the states and PRI which are the responsible for conducting the BPL census and susceptible to may local basis, the imposition of the caps goes against all norms of decentralized planning and development as PRIs are reduced to more mere intermediaries and identifying the poor. No scope is provided for any valid local differentiation in the number of the poor. Given the varied considerations of the three-pronged approach suggested by the EG and helped to extend it in the reducing the exclusions of inclusions and errors, then additions of the authentication, automatic inclusions for the poor is the major strength. The criteria suggested for inclusions and exclusions, however, suffer from quite a few limitations. There is no scope for deficiencies of household based on local knowledge and situations. Given the local, particularly peculiarities and interests, it would be useful to identify the poor based also on some local relevant indicators. It is also not fully clear as to how the exercise and exclusions and inclusions will be actually carried out. The EG assumes that the panchayats will have full information and hence would prepare the list on their own, which may not be true as many of the data are not available within the panchayats. A survey or a PRAs may become necessary for this purpose. It may help even include the voluntary exclusion category, whether in the better off household through awareness may encouraged to file declarations for such exclusions. The land-based exclusion may face difficult due to domain or domain holdings about automatic inclusions. Will the EG has identified many well deserving categories. The challenges will be ensuring that the proactively identified by the panchayatas. It would be useful to actively involve some local credible NGOs and Grama Sabha for such inclusions. The panchayats may give suitable publicity to the inclusion criteria and invite such household to come forward. As regards the grading, the EG admitted rationally is follow a simple formula which is transparent and does not create any disincentives for the poor. The criteria suggested there is an emphasis on identify the chronic poor based on developmental outcomes as well as social and economic structures which influence poverty. Thus, poverty is seen as a multidimensional phenomena. As per a schools designed indicators focusing on caste, religion, and occupational status became the key determinant of the poverty status again within the scales of two indicators creating groups like SC/ST householders or agricultural laborers household with it or without a land given their historical status have been assigned higher score so that they have a greater chance of being graded high. Other indicators focus on education, health, and age survey for more supplementary variable for inclusion. The assignment of these small weightages for the minority Muslim communities under the social status indicators through come as a surprise and appear to have been influenced by the finding of the Chachar committee. So compared to this 2002 BPL method, scoring suggested is much easier with a few number of indicators, 5 instead of 13. So and the simple scoring scales, however, parameters may operational and other difficulties. The effort to simplify the scale may be possible in ignore with wide variation that exceeds with regards to poverty. About occupation, there is a same mistake of assuming sole occupation by the household. The parameter would be pause difficulty at the time of enumeration, which graded to education and reasons for that considering only adults in based on the assumption for the previous incentive likely to be created for the families. Young children are included for the purpose of without a strong basis would be inappropriate to assume to poor could be decided sending their children to school just to retain the BPL status. Another concern is about inability for the purpose of a 10 point scale to differentiate adequately the depth of poverty. As caste and occupation are two permanent variable, most of the poor household are likely to score between 3 to 7 on the scale. Giving preference to the real needed might pose difficulty as many like to have some scores. In such case, EG has recommended giving preference to SC/ST and landless household. It would be more useful to involve Gram Sabha such prioritization. The EG approach the defining a household for survey purpose also have been scope for confection. In identify the household, the EG recommended the single woman, old individuals, adults, and chronic disease, the bonded laborers, many be treated as a separate household. However, care has to be taken to ensure that these individuals are not forced to seek a separate livelihood for the sake of BPL by foregoing the protecting of their preliminary household. About the grievance mechanisms of assessing the role for Gram Sabha had be by the EG is a right up. However, the Gram Sabha has to be clearly vested with power to include or excluded genuine cases. Otherwise, the grievance mechanism may lose the significance as it happened to the past. About the actual survey EG overlooked the past experience. There have been glaring errors in survey process as different states had used different types of agencies. The involvement of credibly NGOs with the PRIs in survey should be commonly encouraged. Conclusion. The new proposed BPL method will certainly is an improvement over the past method in unable to break any few grounds. Hence, it may not be able to address the major pitfall of exclusions and inclusions errors The way forward for the BPL coverage lies in a multi-pronged decentralized strategy. At least for the few essential services like food, employment, water, and schooling, and installations is the answer until a large section of the population continues to be deprived for these basic needs. Universalization and institution for basic services could be even obviated the need for a BPL survey. Further, we must make a PRS both responsible and accountability for the identification of the poor. Instead, for merely employing them to surveyors, PRI must be empowered to take up the exercise as a part of decentralized planning process. Let them plan, identify the poor, and disperse the assistance as per need. Further, for at the same time, service largely demanded by the poor only. Self-targeting schemes like NGRs, ICDs would be help. Even PDS can be made begin self-targeted schemes provide includes even partly items like millets consumed by the poor sections. There can be linkages across schemes better targeting household working regularly under NRGS can be made natural climates and assistance under schemes like PDS. Thank you so much for your attention and participate this summit. Thank you to everyone. Thank you so much.